In 1987, a local Chicago, Illinois broadcast signal was hijacked. Viewers were subjected to a person dressed as a popular TV character of the time, acting and speaking in a strange, erratic manner. Today, we look at the bizarre case of the Max Headroom Incident. This is Red Web. Welcome back to another weekly episode of Red Web. I'm Trevor Collins. That's Alfredo Diaz. If you're new to the show, we cover a new mystery every week. Fredo, how you feeling about this one?
Yeah, we do. Like a hijacking of like a TV network.
Yeah, TV station.
That's insane. Either inside job, which I'm sure is part of one of the theories, or they have some exposed. All right, look, I just watch a lot of movies. Okay. There's an exposed circuit box somewhere that someone got to.
Yep.
And don't shake your head no. Christian's shaking his head no.
That's not improv. That's not yes and, Christian.
It's not yes and. That's yes and what are you talking about?
You're making me feel subconscious, man.
Yeah. Look, someone hijacked.
Spitting facts. Giggling away.
There's some kind of circuit box on the outside of a building that someone hijacked and they took over the signal. Weird that, I mean, they're I guess impersonating a popular character.
Right.
Boy, I mean, we haven't gotten into it yet, but it isn't. I mean, it could be bad. You know what I mean? Someone hijacking your TV network, it can get really bad.
It's really sketchy. You could do a whole lot of stuff with that. Hold on, I'm going to stretch my legs out, get comfy real quick. We're recording in person again, so you know me. I like to stretch my legs out when I do this show. I like to get real comfy, cozy. We're in the comfort zone right now.
So this is our second week of recording this show.
Why can't you look at me?
In the office.
Describe the man in front of you. What are you seeing?
Mistake number one, before I describe the man in front of me in grave detail. Mistake number one, Christian spilling Trevor's water all over Christian's own laptop.
We did do that immediately.
Erratic behavior, just like Max Headroom.
First thing that happened.
2 weeks in to filming in person, and we're falling apart already. Secondly, this man,
the Adonis ahead of you,
Trevor, doubling down, on comfort. That's a fresh pair of Crocs, bro.
Oh, they are freshly broken
and
in.
You're wearing is that the Remy Tim socks?
Yeah, we got some.
So one's like tie-dye orange, one's tie-dye purple.
Yep.
And it's just a black on black pair of Crocs. I mean, at least the man went black on black with it. But what you guys don't know is this man sent me a damn text message, which was a video of him just like, hey, man, I just want to check in, see how you're doing. And then in the background is the Crocs store. Like, absurd. You know what you're going to do.
You know there's a Crocs store in Austin? I didn't know that.
I mean, I had
to
Crocs
rush
are way
up
bigger
there.
than they deserve to be. In my very little knowledge of the company.
I'll educate you.
Never have worn the shoes. You see, you're messing up here, Trevor, okay? Because what you're doing is you're setting a standard for the uniforms for this for the task force, okay?
I told Christian it's true.
This is a conversation
we have this amazing, especially when you look at Sanja's artwork from the Red Web Radio, which I don't know if we've re-uploaded that to the YouTube channel.
We have.
Oh, cool.
It's up there.
So it's there as well now if you want to check it out, youtube.com/redwebpod. It's an amazing aesthetic. It's us buttoned up, white Oxford shirts, rolled up sleeves, very noir, sophisticated. You got those pleated pants down to the boot, no, they're dress shoes, like leather shoes.
Yep.
And I told Christian, I'm like, I'm on the precipice of turning this show into the cozy zone where it's just a bunch of beanbags in a bedroom and a couple boys hanging out with some loose paper and spilled water.
It's ridiculous.
It's a totally different image than I had expected.
Yeah, I mean, we got a mystery in front of us, but there's no mystery that you've lost it. This man went to the Crocs store.
I am cozy. I am real good. Listen, these are. Let me show you up close. These are fur lined.
And they're mostly biggest pairs of Crocs I've ever seen.
And they're the biggest pairs of Crocs that they had in stock, dude. Because they
got the fur lining.
Turns out I'm not their prime demographic. I had the poor girl working there, just scouring the back room looking for any size 12s. Because I think the average size I saw was 7.
Mostly selling to kids, I guess.
Well,
like, I'm a big baby.
Apparently, she was telling me they were flush with 12s. She doesn't know what happened with them. So maybe I'm just a little late to the trend, you know?
That's just weird how that company still chooses to design those shoes that way.
They have a wide variety, and this is Crocs. You know, this could be brought to you by,
well,
but
you
it
went
ain't.
with the classics.
I went with the classics with the fur line, and I'm cozy. I'm cruising. But I want to talk about Max Headroom for a second because this is an incident I have known about for quite some time. And spoiler alert, they haven't found the man, which is very interesting, especially when and we'll talk about this later, a couple other TV station hijackings that had happened around that time that set the precedent.
So wait, do we know it's a man?
I'm saying he because of the character being Max Headroom and the body language, the physique,
because
you can kind of tell with the voice. There's some details that make me that indicated it might be.
Yeah, I was
he.
just curious.
But to be fair, we don't know who it is, and it could be anybody.
Oh.
So yeah, that's a good point. But let's dive into the incident, kind of what happened. That's the information I'm pretty aware of personally, because I've heard about this several times. But the interesting stuff comes kind of in the investigation, because until researching this with the team, hadn't really looked into the investigation itself or any of the theories or suspects. So I'm super excited to be talking about that part of this particular mystery.
Could you imagine just the fear that like the head of the network would have?
Oh my God.
The station getting hijacked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God.
It just happens in front of you. And this is maybe the third time that
Yeah.
something like this has happened by the time that this happened
Mhm.
in 87. So yeah, that's
I'm just look at that point. I would implement some type of big button to push to kind of just kill this, or a big power plug, not like a simple one. I wanted like a meaty plug that I can
like
run over
the one that
and
Spider-Man
just yank.
pulls out when Doc Ock is going to blow the building up.
I know exactly the one you're talking about, but maybe something a little easier to pull.
Oh, because you don't want to have to be a superhero.
Yeah,
I mean, not all of us can be Tobey Maguire, but we're on our way. So let's talk about that incident and stretch your legs out, folks, and get comfy.
It's just like in my oh man,
they're so bright too. They're not. How do they not get in your periphery?
Crossing his leg, the biggest boat.
Dude,
Crocs.
No one can make these look good.
No,
except for this guy right here that you're looking at him.
That's
first time Croc owner, proud owner.
This man's not an exception to the rule. I hate to break it to you.
We're talking about John Croc right here. All right, so this happened on the evening of November 22nd, 1987. During WGN's 9 o'clock news, sports anchor Dan Roan was covering the Chicago Bears' win against the Detroit Lions. But that was abruptly stopped. For 10 seconds, the viewers had nothing but a black screen, which is very odd if you're just watching normal broadcast. But then at about 9:16 p.m., the image on the screen suddenly changed to something completely different. It featured a person wearing a suit and a rubber Max Headroom mask with sunglasses, while a piece of corrugated metal kind of rotated back and forth behind him. Corrugated metal being that kind of ripply metal. Every inch or two, there's another like kind of wave or whatever. Something that you might put on like a shed or an outdoor garage. So clearly at this point, everybody behind the station realizes that the signal's been hijacked. Now briefly for some background on Max Headroom. It was a popular TV character from around that time, and he was supposedly the first computer-generated TV personality. Now, it was a person in some heavy makeup. I think you might recognize Eminem did a music video in a very similar makeup style.
From the Rap God video.
Rap God, yeah, that's what it was.
Not recalling.
You will recall as soon as you see it.
Yeah, as soon as I see it, I will. But for some reason, I can't get the image of NSYNC as dolls out of my head.
That's it. Looks just like that.
Yeah. I can't get that image out of my head. I don't know why. Don't ask me.
No, I mean, it ain't wrong. I feel like a kid's show like Spy Kids had a TV villain or a movie villain that was all plasticky.
Yeah. They also had the thumb, like
thumb people.
The thumb people.
Maybe it wasn't Spy Kids, but the thumb people.
No,
down.
Spy Kids did.
Yeah,
they did?
Yeah. Oh, okay, so that kind of look.
Yeah.
It's a really weird look.
Super
especially
90s
with
early.
the hair, too. There's some like kids' TV shows. I think some that are still going or were going like 5 years ago where they just had the hair or it was just like plastic like that.
Yeah, what was that piece of cake to bake a pretty cake? That show. Silly Town. What was it called?
It freaked me out.
the search history on this man. I just hear
Yeah,
Christian
don't worry
traveling
about it.
away on his
The man in the
Mac.
chair. The man in the
Oh,
chair
man in the
with
chair.
the wet laptop.
Look, you guys want answers? I'll get them for
We
you.
need a cozy pin set, and one of them is Christian in a really cozy chair. I need to get you a Lazy Boy recliner.
Oh, please do.
Yeah.
I appreciate
We
the
are
hell
on
out of
our
that.
way. That's 2v1.
The show is Lazy Town, by the way.
Lazy Town.
Oh, okay.
Featuring Lazy Boy recliners. You could sponsor this show. But yeah, so it had this TV personality in that kind of plasticky makeup, and it was supposedly in a dystopian world. This was a TV movie kind of character. Now, the background is what I want to focus on for a hot second because it was a CGI moving background, very reminiscent of Tron, that 80s CGI look.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, like wireframes, old school kind of video games. And that's what that piece of corrugated metal on this hijacking signal is supposed to emulate. It's supposed to
Right.
give you, because it undulates back and forth in the actual Max Headroom series.
So the people that hijacked this seem to have some money behind it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this isn't just like someone hijacked and it's hi, I'm standing there in a mask. Hello, welcome. It's like a whole production.
Yeah.
That is
Especially-
hijacking a production.
100%. And we'll get into it more in detail later, but like
Okay.
the cost of doing something like this, I can't understate.
Yeah.
This is television broadcast in its heyday. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously TV's been around for a while now, but like I'm talking the 80s, the tech behind it is very expensive, cost prohibitive, size prohibitive, and very specialized. So only certain
Ooh.
people would have access to this kind of stuff.
Like a rival TV network.
Ooh, now we're
It's
cooking.
Spicy.
Yeah. So let's get back to the hijacking. The audio for this hijacking here was only static, and the person was leaning their head left to right, kind of like a bobblehead, or they bob their head but kind of back and forth. Very eerie looking. And this was for about 28 seconds, this broadcast went on, before the engineers returned Chicago viewers to Roan, who was, again, doing the sports news. And when it returned, he said, "If you're wondering what's happened, so am I." Clearly indicating that the network had no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
And that they had been blindly hijacked.
Yeah, which is a smart move because you want to distance yourself from whatever that was.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Whatever liability that was,
Yep.
wasn't us, folks.
Yep. Like immediately just want to just like, nope, we had nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
Cover yourself. Try to cover yourself legally.
Absolutely. WGN's channel then continued that night without any further interruption. But now we flash forward to 11 p.m. About 2 hours later, Chicago's local PBS station WTTW was showing an episode of Horror of Fang Rock, which is a Doctor Who serial. Not like Crunch Crunch serial, but like a serialized TV show. It was an episode of Doctor Who, I believe, right?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It was
All right.
episode.
Maybe it was the episode was titled Horror of the Fang Rock.
Do they call episodes serials? Like what is
Yeah, it's a serialized show, one leading to the next. It's like a linear storytelling.
like a series?
Yeah, series. Yeah. Same prefix. But now, this was almost exactly 2 hours after the first hijacking. Now we're at 11:20. In the midst of this episode, it gets interrupted. It gets closed down. And again, this person in this Max Headroom mask and sunglasses and the whole getup shows up. This time there is sound, and they can immediately be heard saying things like, "He's a freaking nerd." Yeah.
It's like
exactly
a
how he says it.
top-tier troll right here.
Yeah. And I'm sure he's talking about Doctor Who, or the Doctor, I should say. But then he goes on to say so many random things. Another thing he said was, "I think I'm better than Chuck Swirsky." Frickin' liberal. Swirsky was a sports news reporter on WGN, the channel that was in the first hijacking. And he's still in sports broadcasting today, which is interesting. But so now we're already laying the groundwork. Maybe this person knows the network he was interrupting. Maybe he knows this Chuck
Yeah.
person. But the audio was very distorted, probably to disguise their voice, but also to emulate. This Max Headroom character had a very cliche robotic manner of speaking for the 80s. It was like, what are we doing? And it was like,
Yeah.
swinging up and down, a lot of
Yep.
repeated, like, woo, like a lot of that. And
Like
so,
the radio.
yeah, this hijacking had a voice modulator on it that was very similar to that. It was kind of like an ad hoc way to make their voice sound on the fly like very robotic. It was like a filter that was just on.
Jesus, the production value of this hijacking is insane.
It is. And that's very much worth saying because today, we have a system like at home, you and I call it the Go XLR. It's a mixer, but in it has filters. We could just click a button and immediately copy this sound.
Yeah, voice changers, change the pitch, all that kind of stuff.
But instead, he's got this whole set. He's got lights, camera, action, hijacking a signal. His voice is modulated. And he's doing a lot of woo as the voice kind of like has like an almost flange sound to it.
I don't know. It just seems like it's just getting political.
A little political, yeah. A little personal, for sure.
Gross.
I wonder if, because Chuck Swirsky was another sports anchor on the same channel as Dan Roan, I wonder if he wasn't trying to interrupt Chuck on that first hijacking rather than Dan. That's just conjecture, but it's interesting.
He just wasn't there running that segment during that time.
But he certainly interrupted the sports regardless. But yeah, I mean, he continues to kind of bob and dance around the screen. Not a whole lot happening.
Weird.
Saying a lot of ooh and whatnot. And then at some point, he brings up a can of Pepsi into frame and says, "Catch the wave!" And then he fumbles the can out of frame. Then when he picks it back up, apparently, it looked like he had one big, long, like, cartoonish finger. My notes have it, this is the first I've heard about it, is apparently he had some sort of hollowed out sex toy on his finger. Probably just some sort of shock value tactic.
Yeah. If it's just a singular, like, this is just so random.
Very weird.
This is very, I mean, we've had a lot of random stuff on this show.
Uh-huh.
This doesn't make any sense to me.
Doesn't make any sense?
No, not at all. Not one bit.
I'll try to make some sense of this Pepsi piece where he's saying catch the wave, because Max Headroom, it is kind of a slogan. Max Headroom at the time, the actual character he's imitating or making fun of, was apparently a spokesperson for Coke, or at least New Coke. I don't know if you remember that at the time, or looking back, there was the green label New Coke. I think they were just trying to get people to jump on the literal new wave, the new flavor of Coke. And the catchphrase for that, and the commercials that this Max Headroom character was in, was catch the wave. So by holding up a Pepsi, it's clear that he's making fun of this character, very tongue-in-cheek, this whole act. And then after this, he says something about your love is fading. And then there's more moaning. And then he sings a tune, the theme song to Clutch Cargo, which was a cartoon from 1959, which is another interesting fact because from that information, you can start to build an idea of who maybe is behind this. And if they're aware of a cartoon from 1959.
Yeah, maybe like even an age range.
Exactly. That cartoon was almost 30 years prior to this. So now you clearly have somebody who's technically savvy with this equipment. You have somebody who might be knowing about people personally at other stations. You have somebody who's been around since the late 50s at least. So you can start to build a profile, I think.
It's just, I don't know, all of it, it just doesn't, it's just too weird.
It's very avant-garde. And what's more interesting, and there's still more to describe. I want to describe the rest of the scene.
Real quick, so the first time that the network was hijacked was for about 28 seconds. This seems infinitely longer. This
is in total about 90 seconds. I'm breaking down literally everything that's happening.
Yeah.
If you listening at home, task force, if you're so inclined, you can absolutely look this up. There's bootleg versions of this hijacking on YouTube still, if you want to check it out. After I finish describing everything, though, I'm going to show Fredo and you'll get his reaction to it. But it's interesting. It's certainly very, very random. And I think the most interesting thing about this, before I continue describing it, is that there's no obvious motive. There's no...
Yeah.
What's the purpose kind of thing, outside of being just a prank.
It gets slightly political for like a second. I don't know. This is really weird.
Yeah. But after singing this song for a little bit, he's kind of bopping around. I very much get the feeling that he is filling dead air. That he's just trying to make noise and be present while he has the signal hijacked, because he might not know how long he has this. At one point, he even comments, I still see the X, and he even says, I stole CBS, is how some other people take that. If he's saying I still see the X, because he points and he's looking above the camera, it's indicative of, it probably shows him, I have the signal, so I'm going to go do-do-do-do-do while I have it.
Yeah.
But then he continues to sing. Eventually, now he says his longest thing here, he's shaking his head and he says, I just made a giant masterpiece for all the greatest world newspaper nerds. It's worth mentioning that it's a little bit of a different order, but greatest world newspaper probably refers to world's greatest newspaper, which is what WGN stands for, which is the channel he first hijacked.
So this person doesn't have any allegiances anywhere. He's just hijacking all these networks and calling people nerds.
He likes this. He's really leaning into the
what
word
reason?
nerds.
Also, that was a very good point. Like, you really don't know how long you're going to be hijacking the network for. So it's kind of difficult to plan out material for a certain amount of time because you could be on there for 5 seconds or you could be on there for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, at this point, it kind of goes quickly. I have a decent amount of notes here, but the long and short of the very end of this clip is that he puts on a single glove. It looks like a gardening glove or maybe a work glove. He says something about his brother wore the other one, but it was dirty. He takes it off, immediately throws it, and then there's a jump cut. Now, we're going to flag this. We're going to come back to it because remember, this is live. We're supposed to be. So you can't really have jump cuts, at least not of the same person, right?
Right.
So suddenly there's a jump cut. Someone's up on a stool. It looks like it's the same entity, the same person, because you see their upper half has that kind of tannish brown jacket that they were wearing, like a sport coat.
Mm-hmm.
They're up on and this is why I want to give you discretion if you do want to go watch this. His bare ass is fully out. You're just seeing side cheek, no crack, but you got full moon happening.
What the?
And a second person on the right of frame with a fly swatter swatting at their butt.
Spanking it.
Spanking them.
Do we ever find out what the motive is?
No, there's no motive. That's part of this whole weird thing.
I mean, just a troll back in the day?
Yeah.
I have no clue.
Yep.
That's so random. Okay, so...
Yeah, he's spanking. I guess the very end of it, he's getting spanked. He's yelling, "They're coming to get me!" And I think he shows the mask on screen with his hand, something taped in the mouth or something. And then the spanking continues, and then it cuts back to Doctor Who. And man, was that the weirdest episode of Doctor Who I've ever seen.
What the hell? Okay,
still on air today.
If there was a jump cut, I mean, there'd have to be more than one person working with this individual then.
The jump cut is indicative of this being either pre-recorded in part, or at least in full, or in some ways. And my brain is thinking like maybe, and I would do this just in case.
The fly swatter, that's a second person working with them. But
right.
I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, with jump cuts and stuff like that, it could be a small team.
Could be a small team. Could have been filmed ahead of time and then sent out.
True.
It could be that they had a recording of things happening and then he was live streaming over top of that and then was like, if I ever lose my live stream, it at least cuts to this ongoing broadcasted tape is kind of what I was guessing might be happening.
Weird, man.
I think it might be an amalgamation of live and pre-record.
Just like live to tape.
Yeah. But a very, very odd sight to behold. A couple other things that help us build a profile perhaps for the theory section. He's talking about a brother. We do see a second person in frame. This is my own conjecture. They seemed, from what little you can see and from as lo-fi as it is, it seemed like it might be a more effeminate body type. We just don't know who this person is because their face is also obscured.
Or just a man with baby hands. You don't
Man with
know.
baby hands, you know?
You have no idea.
But right now, I think, Fredo, we're going to show you this clip.
This just sounds like it's deep in the YouTube rabbit hole of videos that I just would never want to be in.
Yeah. Catch the wave, and then there's that big finger.
Yeah.
And then he holds it towards the camera.
Yeah.
It's very hard to see what it is.
Seems like he has a loose idea of what he wants to do, and he's just kind of going down the list.
Yeah, see, he says
yeah, I still see the X.
I feel like, and maybe this is getting picked up in the background, but I'm not too worried about Max Headroom coming for copyright.
Yeah, what in the...
It definitely feels like a child who's like, I thought only if I could do this, not what I would do with this. And then they
100%.
did it, and then went, doo, 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 doo,
it's
doo,
like,
doo.
I think we could do this, and they're, like I said, they have a kind of just like a rough outline of what they want to do, and they're just kind of doing it and going down the list.
There's a jump cut. He's got a little that little hot dog thing from his fingers now in his mouth.
The side of a butt.
There's that full moon.
Just spanking. It does seem like it's a.
It looks like the outfit with long hair is where my mind was at, you know? And then it cuts back to D Who.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a person with a partial plan.
Yeah.
The main part
like
of the
plan.
Joker. Yeah, right.
Do I look like a person with a plan? Yes, sir.
Or like... Yeah, referencing the Joker, the TV network was the car, they chased it, and they didn't know what to do with it once they got it.
Exactly. It's very odd. And I want to look for subliminal messaging, whether they're trying to say something with vulgarity by having the thing on their hand, because they're literally showing their hands, then being spanked. I don't know if that's a commentary on the character or news networks per se. they're coming for me. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of different
Yeah.
ways you could try to interpret it, or it could just be non sequitur nonsense, right?
I think that's it's just complete nonsense. It's
Mm-hmm.
literally someone who when I think I have the ability to hijack a TV station or two, and so I'll just do random stuff on the network, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
I understand the jump cut more now, just because like it's probably something that was it looks pre-recorded, right? You jump cut to someone getting spanked with a fly swatter, and you see more than just the like effeminate hand. You actually kind of see like maybe like 20% of the front of the person holding the fly swatter's body.
It looks
with the long hair. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's pre-recorded to make sure that they could analyze the footage to make
Right.
sure that you can't see what appears to be a woman and her face.
Or even when he's like moving around, that the mask doesn't show his neck at all. I mean, obviously you see their hands at any given time, but yeah, that's smart too. So that way you don't slip up live and expose yourself. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I definitely think it's just someone who hijacked it and had no idea what to do. Just because the way they're like, he does a thing and then you can tell it's like, okay, that was bullet point number 1, and then like looks at the ground and it seems like he has a bunch of stuff laid out and goes and grabs, bullet point number 2, and then just kind of loosely plays with it with no sense of direction with the or like specific intention with the object or the way his hands and body moves. It just seems like a lot of just like, okay, I want to grab this can, so now I'm flailing with it, dancing around. It's like he's like, I want to make fun of the fact that he's doing coke, that he's a sellout, or that they're owned by the man. So like, I'll do a butt swatting thing and then this Pepsi thing, but like, oh wait, I have the airwaves for 90 seconds. I didn't realize that. Yeah.
So like, what do you do with that?
And the big takeaway there too was I still see the X in terms of like I'm still in the air, so them not expecting to be on for that long and really not having that much of a plan, other than take over.
You made me think of something, the jump cut. Because we're in production, we might know intuitively what that is, but I want to describe, for anybody that hasn't seen or won't see this video clip, a jump cut is essentially just a cut in a video that jumps to a different angle, hence the name. In this particular instance, it goes from him squared up, center frame, looking at the camera. Suddenly, there is a cut, and whoever this person is in a different position, holding the mask towards the frame, and then there's almost as if they teleported there is how this works, this kind of cut. There's somebody else on the right side of frame kind of doing the spanking. And you can't obviously do that live. You'd have to actually kill your feed, maneuver whoever in the scene, and then go live again. But yeah, very interesting. It doesn't really seem nefarious in any way. It just seems playful, kind of.
No, when the second line was political, I went, oh man, this could like really get like weird.
You could say
less weird and more just like, I was expecting insults to follow about like either the news anchor or the network. But it just had no purpose.
A subtle bit of vulgarity. But yeah, I think it's the underlying what could have happened is what really set people off.
It could have been way worse.
This is like one of those white hat hackers that comes through and says, hey, I hacked your system, FBI or whoever.
Yep.
Pay me to fix it, or I'm just letting you know it's broken. Please fix it. And then they don't do anything that you know of. But let's dive into the investigation, because obviously this left a lot of people in the Chicago area upset, very shocked, because this is not something that you would expect, especially
that could have been
in this time frame.
Way worse. They could have thrown up, I don't know, to the extremes, like people having
shown anything,
sex on
said
cameras,
anything.
A murder, like it could have been really bad, like holy hell.
Which I think kind of goes into the profile, right? No clear motive, a little bit risque, but that's it. Whoever this person wasn't malicious inherently, maybe.
Yeah, it writes that line where like, obviously, they're, the network and the authorities will spend some time and effort trying to track this person down and kind of crack this case open. But there's a difference between like hijacking the network and doing these goofy things and hijacking the network and possibly like, I don't know, murdering someone, right?
Right.
And at that point becomes a manhunt. So it's like, kind of rides that line of like, I'm just going to be goofy, but I'm not going to go any further than that, because then they will not rest until I am found.
Exactly.
Situation. And they will grab every resource possible and spend as much money as they need to find me.
Oh, yeah. So it seems that this person was a little self-aware. Obviously these folks, the news outlets then started calling these hijackers pirates, which makes a lot of sense. Very similar to like pirate radio stations. Just you're hijacking
the
signal.
Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, Jack Sparrow. Pirates of the Caribbean, Davy Jones, But both of these stations, as you can imagine, were just getting inundated with calls from their viewers that evening, just very concerned, but also very angry, some of them. And WGN employees said that during that initial incident, that first hijacking that lasted about 29 seconds, they said they searched their studio to see if the culprit was on site, to say, like, this makes sense. Are they using our equipment to plug right in? They didn't find anyone.
Yeah, it's kind of where you start, right? The same thing with like a missing persons case or a murder case. You start with the friends and family, significant others.
And here you focus on where that hardware is.
Exactly. Like, I mean, this is not cheap hardware. This is not common knowledge.
Exactly.
Man, that would have been bold. Could you imagine, like, they went down to, like, I don't know, the Studio B, and then there was just the mask there with the fly swatter. It's just like, oh my God,
they were here.
The ass was here. It was being spanked right under our noses the whole time.
That's so possible because as you were saying that, I had just a brainwave. A brain blast, as it were. Because of that jump cut we're talking about, is some of this improv? Is some of this pre-recorded? Is all this pre-recorded? What if it was pre-recorded so it didn't need an engineer on site? It was something that could be set up, scheduled, and then done, because this happened around 9:20 and then 11:20. More or less. I'm very simplifying that timeline, but maybe it was something that could be programmed so when they went to go look for an engineer or an employee somewhere in their facility, it was actually just a tape plugged in somewhere.
Yeah.
And they could have left the mask there and it would have been really spooky, but then you may have forensics on your tail or something. But
yeah, which I'm sure they probably like checked the actual tape of the episode or whatnot just to make sure it wasn't someone who edited out that piece or edited in that piece for the episode. Man,
now I'm thinking of a bunch of different ways that this could have happened, but cutting over to WTTW, who was on the second hijacking, no engineers had been found working at that time during that hijacking. And so the Max Headroom broadcast ended on its own the second time.
Yeah, the second time. Yeah.
The first time, they had kind of regained control of their signal to their broadcast. So that's interesting to note as well, that they didn't just maintain the signal as long as they could. They kind of pushed the limits, but like you were saying, they rode that line of what oversteps it, what puts me into hot water versus what just makes this a prank.
And obviously, it's someone that watches the news and the network. Because, I mean, even if I was to hijack a television station, it wouldn't be about the news. Or, I mean, there's knowledge of the anchors and like political things and whatnot and the attachments to each other. It's someone that watches the news and follows politics.
It's clear that whoever this was knew which things they interrupted because they referenced the sports broadcast and one of the other people, like Chuck Swirsky, and then also, and this is my inclination, but referenced Doctor Who by saying, oh, he's a nerd, because like it's just during a regular Doctor. So it's clear that this person, like you said, knows the networks, knows what the schedule was, what was coming out. Maybe he had the TV guide. You know, remember that in the 90s, flipping through, finding out what's going to be on that week. You're like, whoa, this feels like magic. Now you don't need that. But yeah, coming back to the idea that the hijackers shut down their own signal at WTTW, I'm going to quote an employee at the time who was talking to reporters, and they actually said, quote, by the time our people began to look into what was going on, it was already over. So I don't know what happened on the first network, if they discontinued that broadcast themselves or if the network was just ready to tackle it. But the fact that this second one went for 90 seconds, and by the time they realized it and decided to respond to it, they had decided themselves to pull it off. So I'm wondering if they did have a kill switch like you were talking about, or if it was actually difficult to retrieve their signal.
I mean, you got to think that there's things in place now, right, to prevent this incident from happening.
Tons of firewalls and software protections and securities, I imagine.
Yeah. At this point, I would guess that they really beefed up security systems after this.
I mean, I'm trying to think if there's like, you know, there's been like the Super Bowl incidents, right, where then live TV has a baked-in delay now of a few seconds, so that way directors have time to cut things or cut around things. But other than like a couple of these instances, I'm not particularly verbose on this topic, but I can't think of too many other hijackings that have happened after this incident.
I'd be interested to see if we get into kind of like the area of how would be possible?
I mean, no more than we already have, if I'm honest. We'll talk a little bit more about the hardware and stuff.
Yeah.
But the technical know-how, I have to admit, I don't know what it would all mean. So I'd have to simplify it and dumb it down just for my own understanding. But yeah, I think it's just old broadcast tech that they managed to finagle their way into. And not a whole lot of people had that knowledge or even hardware to do it.
Right.
And we have a couple other broadcast interruptions that I want to talk about that kind of preceded this by a few months that kind of set the precedent.
Same person?
Not the same person, at least not that we're aware of. But because of this, and like I said, we'll dive into that in just a second, but the FCC was immediately on top of this. They're diving into it. We're going to find those culprits, what have you. Like I mentioned, some other precedents had been set prior to this incident, so penalties for broadcast hijacking had already been established.
Oh.
They included jail time and fees upwards of $100,000. So it doesn't matter.
Back then, that's pricey.
Absolutely. So it doesn't even matter that you're trying to dance around, nefarious topics or whatever. Even if you think you're just pranking,
that's the way it should be.
It's a crime,
to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no argument in court to say like, well, officer, it was just a prank.
It was just a joke. I wasn't doing anything nefarious, but no. Yeah, I mean, that's the way things should be set, where it's just like, doesn't matter what you did, the line was crossed.
Absolutely. But I guess like this is as in-depth as we're going to get on the how, but basically, long story short, whoever was doing this was able to overpower the station's signal. That's how they were able to hijack it. So they had whatever they had was strong enough in power and in signal. Whoever distributes the television, right, receives that signal and broadcasts it out to the world, was getting their signal stronger. So that in combination with the fact that the broadcast facility, their satellite dishes or whatever broadcast equipment they had, all sat up on the top of very tall buildings in order to really cascade those signals out over the landscape. Basically, it all comes back to the same meaning, which is whoever did this had very expensive and very elaborate equipment to make this happen. Some estimate that the cost of such equipment at the time would range anywhere between $10,000 all the way upwards of $100,000. So this is clearly not something that one could just do from home.
Yeah.
You either had access to this information, or this technology, I should say, from broadcasters, from TV stations, or this person just had some FU money and they just somehow bought this, but then like...
They're like, sure, why not?
But then there's like paper trails. I don't know.
Like, right at this point, you're hijacking a broadcast signal, so the equipment that you'd have is on par, if not better.
Or closer to whatever is receiving the signal.
Yeah.
So either has to be stronger or closer, or basically from all that they can be like, I think there's a location here in Chicago that this is stemming from. That's how they can try to track this down.
So at that point, I'd lean more towards that this was like a hijacking on site, because there would be some kind of trail, right? Like, you'd probably look to see what kind of purchases were made. I'm sure you can't just go to a Radio Shack, and I have no knowledge at all whatsoever, but I would assume it's not just like a go to a Radio Shack and buy these two things and just have the know-how.
Some specialty equipment store is going to be like, yeah, we made a house call to Bob Fisher up in Chicago yesterday.
Exactly.
Caught.
Like, the thought of just hijacking on site is absolutely nuts.
Especially because it was two networks. And that's where I wanted to I fielded this question to Christian earlier. Because to me, another key piece of this was, is there a relationship between WGN and WTTW outside of just being local Chicago broadcasts? And it could be parent companies, could be managers or co-owners or whatever. It could be that the signals stem from the same locations or are received from the same locations. I'm just curious because they hijacked two feeds that had two locations. And so they would have had to be remote via at least one of them.
The thing too is that if it was on site, it'd probably be from one location, because the thought of hijacking on site is absurd. But two sites is insane. And the reason why I say two sites is because the hijackings are 2 hours apart?
Yeah.
So I doubt there'd be like, we hijacked it and then we stuck around and hung out and then did it 2 hours later.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
what if you Google Maps the distance between these two, or MapQuest? Sorry, we're talking about the 80s.
Right. Yeah.
Which is not even 80s. But anyway, what if you like Google Maps the distance between these two stations and it was 2 hours, 2 hour drive?
Damn.
That'd be wild.
Wide open.
But yeah, I don't know. Christian, did you end up finding anything to see if there is any relationship at all that we could kind of pull on between these
Yeah.
two stations?
I was doing some digging, but no, I couldn't really find anything beyond they're both Chicago, Illinois stations.
Mhm.
They're both owned by different companies. They both have different sister stations. The only potential thing is that they both have their transmitter on the top of the Willis Tower.
That's probably it.
That's the only similarity I've found so far.
And I think, as I always do, I jump ahead of myself, but there is a piece in my notes. At the time, it was called the Sears Tower in Chicago, tallest building in the city. And I believe that's the same building.
It is, yeah.
I believe, because I've only ever known it as Sears. But yeah, like that's pretty much why they were able to say, whoever this was, it was likely at the Sears Tower or maybe the John Hancock Center downtown. But without bearing the lead any further, I'm going to talk about some of the other broadcast interruptions because, we can try to maybe delineate the differences between this and these ones, this current mystery and these other interruptions.
And having no knowledge of how this technology works whatsoever, there's probably no chance that it was hijacked outside of Chicago.
Probably not.
Probably not, right?
Knowing radio waves, and again, I'm digging into my very limited education in this front. But yeah, like the closer you are, especially for radio waves of that and stuff of that nature, like the closer you are to the receiver, the transmitter, whatever, the stronger the signal. And in this case, it seems like they needed a stronger signal than the TV was giving in order to take it over. Which also means that they would need hella power to really boost this signal. Hello, everybody. This is Trevor Collins. Hate to surprise you again. It is me, as always, just with some housekeeping notes. Want to talk about some stuff. Hey, if you like our podcast, you know it comes out on Monday at like 2 or 3 a.m. I don't know who stays up that late and why they upload it then, but hey, they're having a good time. If you want to listen to this podcast, though, 24 hours early, you can start to do that as soon as next week. That'll put it on Sunday. All you have to do is go to roosterteeth.com and become a first member. You get a plethora of content that we have available exclusively for first members, but you also get every podcast, every show, everything we do 24 hours early. So yeah, if you want to go become a first member. With that, you also get a discount in our store.roosterteeth.com, where there's plenty of Red Web merch and more on the way. I think we have pins coming sometime. I'm just going to make up a date and I'll materialize it into the world. Sometime in October, I think. We have a cryptid pin set. You can mark your calendars, put it out there. Christian's right next to me, giving me some weird eyes. But I talked to the ecom team, and we'll make it happen. But yeah, stay tuned to our Twitter page for more official announcements and whatnot on when things come out. With that said, let's talk about some of our fantastic sponsors. Red Web is sponsored by The Jordan Harbinger Show, a podcast you should definitely check out since you're clearly a fan of high-quality, fascinating podcasts hosted by interesting people. The show covers a wide range of fascinating topics through weekly interviews with heavy-hitting guests. I recommend our listeners, that's you, Task Force, check out Jordan's conversations with a YouTuber who exposes guru scammers and a different episode on a researcher who studies what turns ordinary people like you and I into conspiracy theorists. There's an episode for everybody. There's all topics under the sun out there for you on Jordan Harbinger's show. So no matter what you're into, there's an episode for you. This show covers stories like how a professional art forger made millions of dollars while being chased by the feds and the mafia. We really enjoy this show, and we think you will as well. So check out jordanharbinger.com/start for some episode recommendations, or simply search The Jordan Harbinger Show wherever you listen to podcasts. That's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER. Again, that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. This episode of Red Web is also sponsored by HelloFresh. Who doesn't get bored eating the same dinner over and over again? But coming with something new, running to the store, getting it, frantically finding it, making it, cooking it, getting all the ingredients is extraordinarily exhausting. But that's what's great about HelloFresh. They send fresh, pre-measured ingredients straight to your door, along with mouth-watering recipes. They make it all super easy. And like I said, it comes right to you. So you can discover new things, new recipes, new food that you like, and you can try it without all the hassle. HelloFresh gives you tons of variety with more than 50 weekly recipes in all kinds of flavors, cuisines, and ingredients. Plus, HelloFresh is 28% cheaper than the grocery store anyway. So you can have the quality, the healthy food, the save all that money, come right to your door without needing to actually go anywhere. I always talk about this meal from HelloFresh because it's one of my favorites, but the firecracker meatballs are some of my favorites, super easy to make, and I just love it. They have this really spicy sauce that comes with it. I don't even know exactly what it's made with, but it's good. I really enjoy HelloFresh because it makes me feel like I'm a chef. I'm able to get my stuff right to my door, and boom, I already know what my dinners are for that week. How much more simple can it get? And also, it makes it super easy to know what I'm going to eat every single day after work, so I don't have to think about it. And it's also super tasty, and I look professional. I look like a chef. I'm not a chef, but they make me look like one. So go to HelloFresh.com/RedWeb14. That's the number 14 at the end there. And use code RedWeb14 for up to 14 free meals plus free shipping. That's up to 14 free meals plus free shipping. What's better than that? Go to HelloFresh.com/RedWeb14. Code RedWeb14. Get those meals. Let them know we sent you. And hey, Task Force, eat up. But with that said, let's dive right back into the mystery. Let's talk about the first incident of this kind of nature. It happened in 1986, only one short year prior to this incident. It happened on HBO, and it was by a hacker or hijacker by the name of Captain Midnight. And all this hijacking was, it was text overlaying some color bars, basically that kind of test signal. And the text on the screen at the time said, "Good evening, HBO, from Captain Midnight. $12.95 per month? No way. Showtime/movie channel beware." And that's all it said. This stayed on the TV for about 4.5 minutes.
Damn.
Yeah, quite some time. And the FCC eventually identified 580 satellite uplink companies that had the capability to overpower this signal. And so this is, I'm diving into these because it gives you scope on how
hard
the fact that
pinpoint that.
So they have 580 satellite links that they were like, okay, these have the capacity to do this. And from that, they were able to narrow down a list by users of the text generator that was used to create the on-screen message. So they said, okay, what was used to make this asset, this visual asset?
Right, yep.
I mean, it's not like they used, there's 1,000 different ways you could do it today. But I guess at the time, it was done via a certain software or equipment. And so combining those 580 satellite systems with the text generator usage, they were able to identify a satellite uplink employee, John McDougal, who was interviewed and eventually confessed to hijacking the HBO signal.
Whoa.
And so the reason I wanted to outline some of these is to show just how, okay, I'm simplifying it, but just how quickly, because of the fact that signals can be traced and the fact that it's very nuanced in this time and age, that the FCC was able to delineate who and where and when very quickly. So the fact that Max Headroom to this day has yet to be found is pretty wild.
Oh, I mean, that person was doing it on site with tech, like with a piece of tech that was very like nuanced.
Mm-hmm. They were at one of these 580 satellite uplink companies that had the capacity to pull off something like this. And then this person was an employee at one such station.
Yeah.
But I guess it helps that he confessed after being
Right.
interviewed. I'm sure plenty of other people were interviewed, and if he didn't confess, he probably maybe could have gotten away with it, but I'm sure that he was just frightened of the
Yeah.
repercussions. And he had told investigators that he was simply protesting the price of HBO Max at the time, which was about $13 per month in 1986. And if you convert that to today's dollars, that's $30.61 in 2020 at least.
It's meaty.
It is meaty. So, I mean, I don't know what HBO Max's price now is, but certainly not that. So maybe
No,
John
not at
McDougal did some good stuff. Like, hey, I don't know.
Doubt it.
But Captain Midnight over here, set the precedent for this kind of behavior. This had not been done before. And so this led to the creation of a new law because technically he was broadcasting with a license. And so was this a crime?
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, this new law made signal hijacking a felony. And I want to talk about another instance, much more brief. It happened 2 months prior to the Max Headroom incident. There was another text-based signal intrusion on the Playboy channel, which displayed some Bible verses. So based on the technology used in this situation and the content of the message, basically, I'm just simplifying. It was very similar to the last one. Based on all things in play, the FCC was led to the Christian Broadcasting Network. And again, they found another broadcasting employee there to be the hijacker. That was Thomas Haney. So now it makes more sense that Max Headroom would be an inside job, that it would be someone at a company that was employed and had access to this software, or excuse me, hardware to make this happen. But what's different here is that this wasn't text-based, this was visual. They
Right.
had a costume, an outfit, they had audio, they were speaking to the viewer. They didn't seem to have any motive, unlike these folks. One was putting Christian messages on a Playboy channel, the other one protesting the price range of a channel. And another piece here, and this again is simplifying the technical side of things, but Max Headroom left essentially 0 clues behind, unlike the other two.
Right. One used, I mean, the other two, they used the, I guess, tech software or machinery.
Mm-hmm.
And that was traceable. But this was just like an interspliced piece of footage?
Pretty much, yeah. And
Huh.
obviously, whoever they knew what they were doing in the sense of hiding their identity, modulating their voice, which also kind of played into the character that they were emulating. And then that piece of metal behind them just prevents you from knowing wherever. That could be a garage, it could be a studio, it
Yeah.
could be the middle of the street. You just wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, like...
So there's nothing to go off of.
This is just like my own personal knowledge, but back before I did like on-camera stuff, during E3 at IGN, I would run all the different like cut to footage. So we would watch a game conference, and if there was anything of interest or of importance, I would timestamp it, and then, you know, very quickly just grab like, you know, ins and outs of like gameplay footage, and then during the live stream just cut to that and splice it right in while they were talking about certain things. So, I mean, who's to say it wasn't just like I just had this CD and I just popped it in, hit play, and then just pulled it right out, and then you'll never know.
Yeah, man. God, that makes me think, like, what if it was some sort of, like, what if there was a movie of this now, and, like, the lead actor is like, I'm gonna catch whoever this is, but then at the end you find out it was them. I was Max Headroom all along, because I'm just picturing whoever was running the station at the time could have very easily done this and then been like, yes, officers, we need to get to the bottom of this. Let me help you find them. And it turns out, like you're saying, maybe they just slipped a tape in the thing, played it for a little bit, and then put it back in their bag. And then they said, where could this have been from? You know, like, it could have been as simple as that.
That actually, yeah, it's true.
Just a VCR
and
player.
then off of just like a random bet from, you know,
right.
one bored rich person to another.
But now I'm just thinking, like, you know, behind the scenes in traditional broadcast at that time, these are evening programs. They're probably planned and scheduled and whatnot. I don't know how many people are working behind the scenes. And so this might be the golden hour to slip in, slip out, or maybe be the only person in there and be like, well, it wasn't me. I mean, I was clearly running Doctor Who tapes, and then this happened.
That makes sense. And I had that as a thought earlier because, right, when it was hijacked the first time, it was what, like 28 seconds or so, and it was around the early evening.
Yeah.
And then
A little after 9.
right, yeah, okay, so like a little after 9, but then like around 11 o'clock, they're able to hijack a different station for much longer.
And have the audio come through.
Yeah.
And close it off themselves rather than,
And you got to think it's more of a skeleton crew during that time, and then just kind of have a playlist or something like that. Or someone just switching out tapes to see, you know, what goes next on the schedule.
Right. So in that case, maybe it isn't. Maybe we're giving them too much credit on the technical side. Maybe it was just someone who could easily slip something
access,
into
yeah.
a Doctor Who recording or slip something into the broadcast as it was going out. And then that was obviously pre-recorded because of that jump cut. I don't know.
I mean, interesting that, like, or at least right now it appears to be that it wasn't someone that just interspliced like that into Doctor Who, right? It was its own separate entity of a thing.
Right. It was its own signal.
Right. They didn't like look at the tape of Doctor Who and went, someone edited this. Like,
that's true. Yeah, I forgot that piece.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a signal hijack.
Yeah. I know, it's all very interesting though.
But coming back to the investigation at hand, I want to quote Al Skierkiewicz. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, who was a broadcast engineer at WTTW at the time. And what's interesting, because when you combine this with some of the information we have prior, it seems very interesting. They claim, quote, if you were to draw a line between both of our studio facilities, that line would end up somewhere between the Sears Tower and John Hancock downtown. Now, what's interesting about that is that both WGN and WTTW, as Christian mentioned, share a transmitter, or at least location of a transmitter, at the Willis Tower, aka the Sears Tower. And so the fact that that line kind of correlates with that spot and that that's where both of their transmitters are, it makes sense that whoever that person was might have been in that building to hijack the signal, to be close to it, or in that area in some way. And using that information, obviously the FCC went forward to try to search that area, see if there were any clues left behind. I mean, it was probably a very minimal footprint, whatever they got going on.
Yeah.
Piece of metal, camera. Ultimately, though, like I said, they never found them. They never found where this hijacking took place or where they filmed it. But, you know, trying to offer some more conjecture on the motive behind this, as we kind of mentioned earlier, it's possible, and this is what the officials were kind of thinking as well, that there was some sort of dislike for WGN or Chuck Swirsky in particular, but that becomes a little less obvious or less apparent because they also broadcasted on WTTW, and there's no real mention there except for maybe this idea of nerds being applied to Doctor Who, but then they also refer to the newspaper Nerds, which would then again be WGN. So that's where the investigation kind of putters away. You know, we have some vague ideas of what the motive could be, vague ideas of where this could have been done.
I'm leaning towards like this was pre-recorded regardless of like, I don't know, it wasn't really edited aside from the hard cut. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Again, this kind of lends to my whole idea that they just didn't know what to do once they got the actual station hijacked.
Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking like they play the VHS recorder and they go, all right, let's pre-record our segment. What are you doing? I don't know what I'm going to do.
Pretty much. And then from there, they didn't care to edit it or clean it up.
Right, then they rapped and they went, excellent, ship it.
Yeah.
Hack the signals with this. I don't know. Maybe the bar was just very low for them. I don't know.
I mean, I think it was more.
I'm thinking as a content creator, I'd be like, that's not good enough.
Yeah, for me, it still leans towards like they just did it because they could.
I think 100%.
Again, right? It's because the whole just dancing around for a minute or so before the jump cut. So there was a jump cut, so they know how to edit. And obviously, like if you're doing this, you probably know how to edit, tape. But like there was no cleaning up the first like good chunk of it. There was a lot of just awkward moments. I don't know, like as a content, as a content creator, you just go, oh, this doesn't have like the jump cuts needed to kind of like have it be polished or punchy at all. It was just like awkward reaching for things and shaking things and putting it down, looking down. Like it's very just like, all right, let's just shoot it and ship it.
Right. And it almost seems to cut in and then cut away kind of randomly. And so because of the fact that it seems to jump in randomly and then jump out randomly, like the first thing he says is, he's a freaking nerd. He could technically be responding to the content he's interrupting, but also then it cuts out in the midst of like the spanking thing. Maybe what was going on was that they had hours or at least several minutes of pre-recorded footage that was all jump cut, just mashed together. And then they were forcibly sending that signal out until they could hijack a single channel.
I didn't even think about that.
Like maybe that's what happened.
The timing must have been like very spot on for the second hijacking.
For sure.
Because the way it's like it jumps cut to the spanking and then it ends and then it goes back to Doctor Who. So they must have been sending out that whole entire signal for however long the duration was, and it just so happened to catch it right at the tail end.
Yeah. I don't know. The investigation is interesting. I hadn't known about those other interruptions, and that kind of really makes this even more interesting because they were able to find the culprits behind these previous two hijackings, but not this one. And that's so interesting to me. And what's even more interesting is the theories. And I guess we have one person in particular and then two groups of individuals that, like, again, I just never really looked into there being suspects for this. And so I'm really excited to dive into these.
You just knew that it happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, the first theory I want to talk about is a specific person. And the theory purports that this Eric Fournier, who was an artist, was actually the person behind this Max Headroom incident. So Fournier was a musician and the creator of the character that you might have seen in YouTube videos from the early 2000s. This character was named Shay St. John. This person was a model who wears an odd-looking mask after being injured in a car accident, and these videos were uploaded between 2006 and 2007, but they were removed by YouTube. I think some people might have archived them and saved them and re-uploaded them themselves, but I don't know anything about this character, so proceed with caution if you want to look that up. Now, fans of Fournier believe that the style of Max Headroom and the incident therein strongly resembles that of Shay St. John and those videos. There are masks, unsettling shock humor, very similar body mannerisms. Not a lot to go off of, but enough for some people.
Yeah.
He also lived relatively close to Chicago in Bloomington, Indiana. Shout out to Indiana University, IU down there, Crimson and whatever they got. Boiler up. No, the Crimson and Cream. That, it's relatively close to Chicago. I mean, it's probably like a 5 to 6 hour drive, if I were to guess.
Yeah, so very much doable in a day.
Yeah, so accessible if you were to drive up on the weekend or whatever, hijack a TV station in the evening. And so it's theorized that in order to bring some attention to his band, the Blood Farmers, which, hey, here's some attention for you, pal. He wanted to hijack a TV station and show one of his band's music videos, which I think is really rad. If you wanted to like, what's one up from pirate radio is pirate television. If you could take your music video and push it out to the world, I feel like that'd be such a cool stunt, despite it being a felony.
I was about to say, that's like, boy, oh boy, not worth it.
I don't know. Like the risks of being caught, the fees therein, the jail time.
Yeah, like...
Good luck with your band future, I guess, if you're arrested.
Yeah, such a huge, just like, I wouldn't even say gamble. You're just throwing it away at that point.
100%. And so a lot of people said, okay, well, maybe to avoid this risk, they continued with their plans, but instead did some sort of sketch or skit to kind of obscure their face, put on this character, have fun with it. But then I'm like, but then the purpose is gone.
Does
like
that tied to the band?
Right.
There's like, I
Right.
mean...
So they're saying, okay, no, it started because they were going to get their music video out there, man. They're going to get their band out there. And then they said, you know what? Let's not risk it. Let's still do the illegal thing, but not put our band on it. Then I'm like, okay, hold on, what?
Yeah, it's just very weird. I don't know. Like, obviously, you wouldn't want to do it and then tie it to yourself because then you get hit with the felony.
Sure.
But
I would just say, I don't know, maybe it was a fan.
It just completely derails the entire motive behind
100%. I think if they're not wanting to take the risk of jail time and the fees and all of that, then they probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
Rather than still do it, just obscure who you are.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, of course, I'm just guessing, but to build on this theory, supposedly they had even borrowed some TV equipment to film their music video, and they're saying, the theorizers of this particular thesis, whatever, are saying that they use that same TV equipment dual purpose, not only to make the music video, but then to hijack the airways.
Got it. So then at that point, man, because then you could I mean, if it's used for music videos, who knows how many music videos during that time was made with said same equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd really, I mean, did the FCC look into them?
I don't know if there's enough here to really go off of for the feds to come through.
Yeah. I mean, they have the equipment.
I mean, apparently they borrowed that. And I do want to clarify, just for the sake of our non-US listeners, the FCC, you might have heard of them before. They're the Federal Communications Commission. They regulate basically anything that goes out broadcast-wise, TV, radio, all that good stuff. If you watch South Park and you hear the bleeps, that's them. Just wanted to clarify that. But yeah, I don't know. And so I guess whether the FCC investigated or not, it's worth mentioning that friends of Fournier to this day deny this theory, claiming that he didn't have the technical know-how to accomplish something like this. He wouldn't know how to do it. Even his bandmates deny that it was him, which I would say if you're a bandmate, you might be part of this, so of course you're going to deny. But the fact that close friends of Fournier are like, he wouldn't know how to do this, I would tend to believe it because it's very niche knowledge at the time.
Yeah, I mean, the person that did this, I would say, either has like a career in broadcasting or just the career, I guess, in the like the technical know-how, you know, what I mean? Like the engineering aspect of it.
Yeah, this ain't like no layman's thing,
right? Not like, oh, a musician figured this out,
right?
Or at that point, it's a stretch to be like, well, it was a musician who, in their spare time, like had a broadcasting degree, like
some sort of weird science dude, like. I don't know. I make magazines come to life and I hijack airways. Yeah, I don't know. And what kind of sucks about this particular one, as we've seen it in other mysteries and conspiracies before, is that Fournier unfortunately passed away in 2010. So there really isn't any way to definitively prove or disprove this theory, though I don't find there to be a lot of strength in this one, a lot of weight in this one.
I don't follow it.
But it is interesting because, again, I hadn't up until this research really known about any particular suspect or what have you, let alone someone with a specific name. So this was interesting to at least look into. This next theory is interesting and kind of brings us back to our bread and butter, the internet. This next theory kind of stems from a 2010 posting from Reddit user BPOG, B-P-O-A-G, who wrote in an AMA post, which is an Ask Me Anything post on Reddit. They said, quote, "I believe I know who's behind the Max Headroom incident that occurred on Chicago TV in 1987, end quote. This user, turns out their name is Bowie J. Pogue. We'll refer to them as B. Pogue from here forward. But they wrote that whoever this person was, they were involved in the Chicago's hacking and freaking scene as a young teenager, despite most members of that group in that community being older. So phreaking stems from the amalgamation of the words phone, free, and freak. Basically, people that, without knowing the technical blatherings of it, hijacking phone signals, basically spoofing phone signals to make free calls. We take for granted minutes and phone calls now, but at the time, telephoning and phoning a friend or whatever was actually a pretty costly service at the time. So this was just a group of people that were interested in hacking electronics, phone, communications, networks, things of that nature.
Yep.
And so B. Pogue is coming forth saying, I know that there's a young teenager in this group of otherwise older folk that is probably doing this. These users mainly communicated with each other at the time on D-Dial and BBS online chat servers, which we talked about very lightly, I believe, in the Merovingian parallax. What is it called?
Oh, the Markovian parallax disintegrate.
The Markovian parallax disintegrate. That's what it was. So Pogue is sitting there saying that he believes the person behind the Max Headroom incident were two brothers, and he referred to them as K and J, just the letters, not their names or anything, but just K and J, as well as K's girlfriend. And all of those folks were apparently involved in this community. So it would make sense. So K and his girlfriend lived in an apartment filled with computers and technology. Pogue described K as very reserved, and J was described as having a disturbing sense of humor, quoting Pogue to say, quote, sort of disturbing, sort of sexually deviant in nature, end quote.
So it lines up, but who's to say they're not just trying to make it line up?
Exactly. So Pogue continues to build on this story, saying that he heard a rumor that Jay was interested in newspapers, WGN being a newspaper. Pogue also wrote that Jay often changed the subject in conversation, similar to the style of humor in this incident, how they kind of jump around ad hoc to all these different bits that they had planned. Like you said, it looked like they're reading off a sheet of paper on the floor and kind of going, okay, I'll do the Pepsi bit, then I'll do the this or whatever.
Just bullet points.
And so this Bowie Pogue is saying, this feels very much like K and J, these folks that I know. And Jay was extremely knowledgeable on many different things and had even hacked a police radio before. So, and again, like you said, this is just a story from somebody. And so you have to take it at face value.
That's the crazy thing where it's like, it's all lining up and you're creating the suspect, but you can't go off of just someone on the internet.
Right. Especially an anonymous person talking about other anonymous people with nothing but he said, she said to go off of.
Yeah.
But to add to this otherwise seemingly perfect story, Pogue is saying that Clutch Cargo, that song that this person was singing at some point, he added that Clutch Cargo would have been a TV show that Jay was watching as a kid because it puts Jay in that age range. The evidence is all very circumstantial, but Pogue told Motherboard, quote, I look at the guy in the mask and I see Jay. He also believed that the person spanking Max at the end of the video was Kay's girlfriend. And to further round out this story, Pogue says that while they were at a party hosted by the hacking community in 1987, they overheard that Jay was planning something big over the weekend. And when Pogue asked what was going on, Kay told him, quote, just watch Channel 11 tonight. Channel 11 being WTTW's channel, and tonight being obviously when that went down at 11 o'clock or so. So later that night during Doctor Who, Pogue witnessed the Max Headroom hijacking, but didn't think anything of it until later that the person on screen might have been Jay. Now this is where I pause and I sit there and I go, this is the excuse you have when you're making up a story.
Yeah.
Your friend told you to watch this channel tonight.
And you're part of a hacking group. That's 1-to-1 right there.
Yeah. And you go, I didn't put it together.
What?
I'm like, your friend, you were there because your friend told you to be. Like, yeah, exactly.
That story completely falls apart for me right then and there.
That is the perfect liar's, storyteller's excuse to have at the end, oh, I just didn't realize it at the time.
That's why I didn't come forward sooner and talk about it. What the hell? Like, you're a part of this hacking community, and then someone literally tells you to watch the news during that time, and this was a big thing. There's no watching and going, I don't know what they were talking about. I don't know what.
I was watching the channel, and then it went crazy, and this man started speaking away, spanking himself.
I have no idea what could have been like the thing to look out for. It doesn't make any sense.
And then weeks later, it dawned on me. Oh my God, is that K and J? Like,
come on, man. I mean, a beautiful tale that would have, fit nicely into this narrative to package together, but I can't.
Part of me wants, I so want.
You want to, right? But also, because also at the same time, you sit there and you go, well, this person's being anonymous, talking about people anonymously. How are they going to get caught or found out?
Right.
It's difficult.
It's interesting, and like when researching this,
Like, why not risk it? Why not
right?
do it, but
I wanted to suspend disbelief. I wanted to believe that this because it feels poetic, right? I mean, but obviously it's using hindsight to retroactively create a story. Perhaps.
it doesn't give me like just the one piece of information, just like anything, just like a little nugget where
Like,
you
how would they have
go,
known that?
Just like, how would they know that without being a part of it? There's nothing there.
Right.
All of it is just like
These
they
are people
could've
that could have been made
just
up
pulled it out of the
or
air.
not. You
Yeah.
know, and I think that thinking in you and me is probably going to be exacerbated by this next piece of information. At least one other person from this hacking group named, at least on Reddit, they were named Anonymosity, confirmed this story. They claimed that many in the community thought that it might have also been K and J. Now, that's just another anonymous person coming forward to say like, hey, I think it's correct. I definitely think. But what's interesting is going back to that Motherboard article, the writer of that article, Chris Niddle, asked Pogue to reach out to the brothers. But after many attempts, it was clear that they were not going to respond, or at least that's what it seemed like. So it's worth noting that the identity of the hijacker may still be a member of this community. I think the community there in Chicago is very interesting, but I think that this could be just a very nice tale. And the fact that they just weren't able to get a response for the sake of the author could be maybe because those people don't exist. But again, part of me wants to, like 10% of me wants to go, maybe, but I don't know.
Right. I mean, because also if they got away with it, why even risk anything at all?
Sure.
You did it. You got away with it. Why even step into it?
Yeah, because I think there's something fun about knowing you did something and got away with it. It is worth mentioning, though, because this question kind of kept coming through my head as we were researching this. The statute of limitations on this particular felony is 15 years.
Ooh.
So it would have been up in 1992. The fact that we're talking about this Reddit thread from 2010, the fact that this next theory doesn't come out until 2015, just goes to say that we're way past it. And so unless the
Yeah.
person has passed away due to age, remember they were singing a song from the late 50s, or maybe
You could have just like known about it from your parents or something. It's
very
You know what
true.
I'm saying? Like if I'm to do something,
I sing Different Strokes theme song all the time. I sing Cheers' theme song all the time. And I watched those as a kid, but like I wasn't really around
if I was
for
to
them.
do something that was a big felony like that, I would look at every single detail and make it not me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Characters that I don't care about, jingles that I don't know. I'd research random stuff.
Right.
Like I would not have
Like
any
just-
of it trace into anything that I like whatsoever.
Right, chugging full-on gallons of Florida orange juice. Just being like, this man must love orange juice.
Love
Like,
orange juice.
today I do.
Yeah. Today's the day that I do. I love pulp.
The only piece of my character that I couldn't hide
It's
is
ridiculous. This
is the
man's
comfort.
just stretching out the Crocs right
is
now.
the comfort. I just
I
couldn't
just-
hide.
I took
I'd have
you
to film from
seriously
the
for
ankles
half
up.
a second. For
I'd have to
half
film
a
from the
second.
ankles up.
I thought you had something real for half a second.
I'm just looking at the ceiling, full stretched out, almost laying down. But let's talk about the last theory here. This seems to be the most common theory for the identity of Max Headroom, that it was a broadcasting employee. I think both of us, I think all of
Yeah.
us listening have probably been like, yeah, no crap. But that's the most popular theory, just based on a lot of different things.
Yeah, but what do we got to support it?
What do we have to support it? Let's dive
That's
in.
the interesting part.
Yeah, let's dive into what we have. So in 1987, the equipment to broadcast a signal was very uncommon and very expensive. We covered that. Other signal hijackings from the time period were also done by broadcasting employees with their employer's equipment. Again, we covered that. But then it comes into the more conjecture territory, right? For example, like when the hijacker was talking about the WGN nerds and complaining about their sportscaster, Chuck Swirsky, you know, as you and I were kind of thinking out loud, you know, maybe there's a personal vendetta here, either against this person or against this network. Maybe they were a disgruntled former employee of this location, or someone who had originally wanted Swirsky's position. Who knows? But what's interesting too, and this kind of combines these theories, as I like to do, just because you're a broadcast employee doesn't mean that you aren't in the hijacker, freaker, hacker
It's a hobby
community.
on the side on the weekends after hours.
And so kind of combining that with what Bowie Pogue was describing, I want to talk about him for a second. In 2015 now, 5 years after his original post, Pogue is obsessed with this person, this community, and this incident. Pogue describes his new theory in a text post on the Unsolved Mysteries subreddit.
Why is this person just coming back with another theory? I thought
Keep it running.
I just thought
Keep
you
it
had
running.
it nailed down already. Right? Like it kind of just seems like if that was a true story, what other theory?
Yup.
Like that's the theory,
Exactly.
right?
You don't say, I heard this at a party and everybody in the city knows it's
Yeah.
K and J.
Like, I
and then
wouldn't-
be like, I got another theory for you.
Right.
I'm starting to think it's you, Mr.
Right?
Pogue.
I wouldn't sit here and think that like, oh, I have a theory that Matrix is real, and then just go, all right, I got a side theory. Maybe it's the Lord of the Rings that's real. It's just no, like, what are you talking about? You're in one
Yes.
camp or the other. What is this? Okay, what is this other theory?
Yeah, so let's dive into this one. Now, I just want to pause because I had the same reaction as you did as we were going through this.
Hell?
Pogue, my man, if you're still out there tippity-tapping away anonymously, I think it's you. I think you are reveling in the fact that nobody knows that was you, and you're just like, let me give them another mystery theory, and they're going to dance around this one, and I'm going to chuckle as they think it's
'Cause
someone
it's
else.
me
Like,
the whole time.
right. Maybe he's like, I don't want to fall into obscurity. Remember Max
True.
Headroom? It was me. I have another theory about it. Yeah, so he has another text post here in the subreddit for Unsolved Mysteries, a really fascinating community that I'm a lurker in, and I like to read some of those posts that crop up periodically. But Pogue linked up with Rick Klein, who was the curator for the Museum of Classic Chicago Television. And from this, they were able to gather some information. Pogue then went forward and interviewed broadcasters from the time that the broadcast intrusion occurred.
This anonymous person?
I think so. Unless it was, or was it Rick Klein that did the interviews, Christian?
From my understanding, it was Rick Klein that did the
Oh,
interviews.
okay.
Yeah.
I just misread. I misread. Okay.
I was about to say, that's crazy that this anonymous person is
Yeah.
reaching out to people anonymously, and they're taking this anonymous person seriously, and then there's this partially anonymous interview.
Well, I guess his name, we know his name, so he's not anonymous anymore.
Right.
But yeah.
It was either that Klein did the interviews or he worked with Klein and they both did the
get those
interviews
names.
together. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Klein helped lend the credibility.
Yes, that makes sense. Because otherwise, I was with you,
Yeah.
Fredo. Like, this man is putting himself at the center of this storm, and I don't know why unless it's him. Okay, so regardless, these interviews went down with broadcasters that were around during that time window, during the hijacking. They're basically saying it's extremely unlikely that someone would have this equipment at all to overpower a whole station. But, I mean, that there is a slim chance that it is out there. But basically, they concluded that it's most likely that whoever this person was or whoever these individuals were, that they were an employee or employees, or at least had access to a station.
Yeah.
And so that really hones us in on, obviously, employees at the time.
God, who's to say you didn't get it from like an auction or something?
Right. I don't know if there's any
right?
ghost
Like,
stations out there or facilities left unlocked and unmanned. Like
that, or like
knows?
it was a previous model that got lost or broken and wasn't in use and no longer tracked down, and someone grabbed it from an auction or some kind of electronic junkyard or something. Like
yeah. Man, I'm really trying to think, like now I'm picturing some sort of Back to the Future situation. You got Doc Brown MacGyvering in a bunch of like car batteries together, sparks flying, and he's like, we only have enough juice for 90 seconds of broadcast. Hit it. And then he's like, woo!
Do your thing, go!
And he's like, oh my God, this is what we're broadcasting. Cut the signal, our batteries are dead. And then it goes back to Doctor Who. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think this is so fascinating.
I definitely think it's someone that has the know-how.
Oh, absolutely.
With
Absolutely.
the broadcast background. I don't think it could have been anyone
I
else.
think someone that did this was certainly talked to about it, and they kind of just slipped by. They say, yeah, that's weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just some employee that went, who
Yeah.
knows how that happened.
Most likely someone that was interviewed too. That's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. But, I meant to say this at the top of the show, but I'm really happy that we covered this one because this was, like many of the episodes we covered, this was highly suggested by you all in the task force listening. So thank you so much for putting this on our radar. I love catching these ones that are, for me, personally very nostalgic, and then I get to share that with you, Fredo.
Yeah, I had no idea this happened.
Yeah. And the fact that you can like look it up on YouTube and be mindful again, some side cheek action, but like
Right.
you look this up on YouTube and see it. It's so fascinating because I like this one because it's not. It could have been nefarious, but it was
so bad.
Right.
It
It was
absolutely terrifying.
it
Also,
was
surprising that it
okay.
wasn't like the first time it happened.
It was definitely on the cutting edge of whatever it was.
Yeah. Oh man, what a waste of time.
I guess
like,
so.
Hijacked.
A waste of brilliance.
Yeah, exactly.
This
That's what
man
it
could have
is.
been Steve Jobs, though. He could have gone on to make iPhone and Mac computers wearing his New Balance.
If you weren't
being
on
comfy.
site and you had the money and the know-how to do this, What a waste of a mind.
I guess.
But then
man.
again, just for the hell of it, that's what I'm thinking. They just did it for the hell of it.
I think they seemed like they were having the time of their lives. They you know what that felt like to me, despite the fact that they were singing a song from the late 50s. It felt like to me a bunch of kids in high school, giddy, late night, doing something that they
Yeah.
shouldn't have been doing, but wasn't super evil. It was just like, it was pushing
like,
the boundaries.
Oh, it worked.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're and they're cackling away, you know,
That's
after
that's how it felt like.
spank me, you know, I don't know.
In the mind of the person that was in front of the camera, just
That's
like
Spank me.
Spank me. Well, this is high
Oh, yeah.
school.
Oh, yeah.
Spank me.
Oh yeah. Look, there wasn't just like a show ass and the spanking happened. You know, there was a go ahead.
It was premeditated for
Yeah.
sure. Where they got that fly swatter? Like they had to.
Spanking.
Hold on.
Weird.
Can we track
dude.
that fly swatter? Was it bought from a
Yeah,
local dollar store or something, like a Dollar General?
Hold on. How many
Pull
fly
some-
swatters
pull some
were
seats.
purchased? Yeah, it's someone with the knowledge and know-how. I'm leaning more towards it was done at a station as opposed to like someone had the equipment and then just hijacked the signal.
Right.
There hasn't been any incidents. I mean, I know there was like one or two after that.
I'm
but
sure there was two before, and I'm sure there was a trickling. I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, because also it's just like the Chicago news station. Like, how far is that going to carry in terms of like worldwide news?
Are you asking if there were more on those specific stations or just more?
No, just like in general.
More TV station
or have, like
hijackings.
stations like really been able to lock down their signals.
There have been a few over the years. Just looking at a quick list of incidents, the most recent occurred on a radio station in the UK in 2017, in 2012, 2009, 07. So yeah, it's happened every now and then, but not.
Yeah.
It's not super common.
That's so weird that it isn't more common. I guess that just goes to show the infrastructure is pretty sound.
Yeah.
But nowadays, why bother? You can go on
Why
Twitch
would
or
you-
YouTube or whatever and put whatever you want out there. Spank whoever you want, whenever you want.
Get paid for it. Yeah, because it's just kind of like, why? Why? I mean, that's big jail time.
We got to get a
and-
red web fly swatter.
Just swat away those mysteries.
Oh no! It's for the ghosts in the monsters under the bed. Get away, monster!
Is there a conspiracy that you're not that you don't really subscribe to? Swat it away.
Swat it away. Swat it out of your mind.
Don't like that theory? Just go ahead and swat that too.
Yeah, and while you're there, swat that like button. Oh man, I don't know. It's nice every now and then, as we've talked in the past, just dive into some of these mysteries that are not so spooky, you know, that they don't undermine your faith in humanity or the world. I mean, there's plenty of that, but
this is one. Just watching that video, it's a pretty cringe video.
it's so cringe.
I rarely use that word, but it was pretty cringe.
Yeah,
it
The
just
audio
seemed
is
like
creepy.
It's
the
creepy.
audio is
creepy.
very creepy, but the whole time it just felt like in the person's head they were going this and this the lights still on this and all that it just that's what it felt like.
Fredo and I have taken improv courses together, Christian, and it's the improv in us that look at that and go, oh.
yeah, pretty much we go, oh no, oh no,
anything, just to find a thing and stick to it. Go back to the
you're jumping.
just go back to the sausage figure. I don't know what you were
Just
doing.
latch on to something, please.
But yeah, that has been the Max Headroom Incident. It's a nice little refreshing dive back into the past too, as technology was kind of on the cusp of modern digital, internet and CD and whatnot. But, we are looking to get back into those internet-centric mysteries. That is our bread and butter. But honestly, there aren't a huge amount. So if you ever find, as you peruse the internet in your day-to-day and you find yourself in a strange corner of the web, you can let us know via redweb@roosterteeth.com. You can hit us up at roosterteeth.com. In general, we upload our podcast there. In the comments section, we have youtube.com/redwebpod. The comments section there, the reviews you guys have been suggesting in the reviews on Apple, all of that good stuff. But yeah, thank you for those 5-star reviews, man. I looked at the average the other day, and you guys are kicking it. You're kicking it out there.
Thank
So
God.
thank
I
you.
was too terrified to look at the thank you, everyone.
Oh, I don't have the mental fortitude to look every now. I look
Thank you.
periodically.
We
But
appreciate that.
man, you guys are keeping us floating way up there. So thank you so much, and thanks for sharing the podcast as always. But with that
Big thanks to
said,
just like not taking us seriously and kind of just understanding we're just scratching the surface of this stuff, and it's a more of an enthusiastic podcast rather than like we're going to crack the case or like spend 3 hours, going over every little piece of detail.
Right.
So.
If we had the time to get into every nook and cranny, that'd be really cool. But I like scratching the surface and living that top life, that top of the iceberg life, where things aren't too sinister and we can go home laughing and chuckling. I also hope you've appreciated, audience, or task force, us being in person. I feel like personally it's brought a huge energy to the show. Christian's on that perma hot mic, so we can get him giggling anytime now.
Yeah, every now and then.
He doesn't know how to feel about it.
How many times has this man disapproved of my thoughts and theories, and I just didn't know?
Exactly.
I had no clue. But now I can see you, Christian.
Disapproved is a strong word. All right.
I'm gonna
so
take it.
hateful.
I'm reacting.
So
Yes.
hateful.
Oh my God. I think he left the room at one point when I started talking.
I heard him
It was
stomp out and slam the door.
ridiculous.
I did,
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's been rejuvenating to say the least. So like we've been at home recording at distance through quarantine a whole year. To now finally be in person, I think it brings a whole new dynamic, and it lets us shine our personalities a little bit more, which I've been wanting to do with this show.
Yeah.
We have that infotainment kind of feel. We get a little bit of the mystery, a little bit of the comedy, and we appreciate you guys kind of rolling with it.
I swear to God, if the task force starts putting in Crocs as
You want to sell some
as a
Crocs,
part of the
dude?
uniform,
Now that is an idea.
I will. You know what I mean?
Hey,
'Cause
John Crocs,
Task
hit us
Force
up.
looks so cool. There has been a handful of people who have dressed up as a Task Force member. Come on, man. Don't throw Crocs into that. Please. I know it's funny, but don't. Oh, God, don't let... No. Because
We gotta have a cozy corner.
Eventually, we might be doing like the, RTX again, live in person. Well, I mean, eventually we will. Who knows how long the pandemic will go on for? But
5 more years. 5 more years.
no. But like, eventually like red web panels in person and whatnot. And I just don't want to look out and see everyone in
Crocked up.
raincoats and
Raincoats and
just
Crocs.
like
Socked
detective
up and
coats
crocked up,
and
baby.
socked up in Crocs, bro. Come
Pull
on.
those socks up to your kneecaps,
what are
baby.
we?
Oh, high-rise sockages and floppages.
It's too much. It's too
Yeah,
much.
I don't know. I think here's what we can go ahead and put the lore down. We'll make this canon. You get comfy when it's time to research. You get comfy when it's time to kick it.
Right, so
But when you are investigating, when you're
Yeah.
out in the field, it's time to be straight-laced, okay? Tighten that bow tie and let's go. You know what I mean?
So does every desk at that point have a pair of Crocs to slide
Yeah,
into?
you slip in and out. Just like Mr. Rogers. I come singing away into the door. I hang up all my peripheral clothing.
We're always slightly late to get on site because we're lacing up.
Yep. Well, you know what? Sometimes mysteries need to wait. They need to like marinate a little bit. I put on my sweater vest. I sit down. I sing to the camera that isn't there, and I strap on my Crocs, flops, and Birkenstocks, and we're ready to cruise, dude.
Christian, this man's gone too far.
No, yeah. Absolutely.
I'm gonna tweet. By the
In person
way,
was a mistake.
Yeah,
Let's be
it
real.
was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get
Let's
another
go
photo
back
of these
to
Crocs
remote.
and socks, but I've already tweeted. I think last week's photo with the socks and flops. Now that was just a dire situation. I had to leave the house. So I slipped in and I was going for
This man
speed.
knew how desperate that
A
looked.
dire situation.
All right, let's get this look on. We're gonna do the photo in the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Photo happening in 3, 2, 1. You can hear the disappointment now. Thank you all so much, by the way. We'll see you next Monday for another Mystery Fredo. Right back here for another comfy, cozy episode.
I will be here.